If you were asked what was the deadliest conflict since World War II, what would your answer be? Syria, Afghanistan, Vietnam? The correct answer is the war in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, often called the Great African War, involving Congo and the 8 nations on its borders, yet most of us haven't even heard of it. An estimated 5.4 million people died during the initial fighting, and although a treaty was signed in 2002, the violence goes on, with an estimated 100 groups of armed militia roaming rural areas, raping and pillaging villages. About 4.5 million people are still displaced by the war within the Congo. They've lost their homes, their livelihoods, as well as members of their family, through no fault of their own. That's roughly the same as the entire population of Sydney. But our focus is on one group for whom the tragedy is even more acute: the Pygmies, the hunter-gatherers of the African equatorial rainforests. Barbara Ferguson met a group of these people in a roadside camp at a place called Mubambiro, just west of Goma near the Rwandan border.
They were living in conditions that were so miserable. I really was so moved. They were discriminated against. They were pushed to the back of the camp, living in little grass humpies that they'd made, and their children were half naked, dirty. They were lucky if they ate a couple of times a week.
When Barbara first encountered the Pygmies at Mubambiro, she promised to help them and asked them how she might best do that. They said, "We don't want our children to live like this forever. We need you to send them to school so they'll have an education." They were right. Education was the key to a better future. But first the Pygmies needed to be settled in a safe place together. They needed homes, and to build homes they needed land. Barbara raised the funds to buy some land, coordinated with another agency to provide materials, and organized an engineer to build 65 houses. Importantly, the Pygmies were taught the skills to build their own houses, skills which would sustain them in future and gain them some respect among the surrounding tribes. Next, a community centre was built, becoming the focal point for the settlement and serving the community in a number of ways.
We've used the centre building to hold various classes for the adults, like literacy and sewing, and we've introduced various income-generating programs, fishing and agriculture. But given the lack of jobs and the discrimination the Pygmies face, they still couldn't give their children what they needed, and I saw that too many of our children were seriously malnourished. So in 2014, I decided to shift the focus of the projects to caring for the children under 7 years, the crucial years for physical, cognitive, social, emotional development. With the help of my Congolese friends, we set up a not-for-profit agency called Pygmy Child Care, and now none of our children are malnourished. As soon as a child can walk, they come to the centre 5 days a week. They receive porridge when they arrive every day and a meal of maybe sweet potato and beans before they leave. Pygmy Child Care staff engage them in games and songs and all the usual preschool activities, except in Congo the children need to speak the local tribal language and Swahili and French, so they are taught in all these languages.
Every month a medic comes to the village to hold a primary healthcare clinic in the centre and may see and treat as many as 100 people, as well as any of the children who are sick. Everyone in the area is invited to come and participate when there's a need for an information session on the many health problems like HIV, cholera, malaria, measles or Ebola prevention. Also, every month the pregnant and breastfeeding mothers get supplementary food and medical care. So Pygmy Childcare is really looking after these children from conception to 7 years.
From the start, the parents showed they really valued education, and so we've been sending children to school for 10 years, and we've had some wonderful success stories. Some of the children have not only passed their high school exams, but they've gone on to do tertiary education. The wonderful thing is that several of them have come back and said because they're so grateful for what we've done for them, they want to help other children.
Pygmy Childcare has made a dramatic difference to the lives of the Pygmies through the programs introduced, but at least $2,600 a month needs to be raised just to keep these basic programs going. The people are not yet able to contribute to costs, and there's always extra funds needed to maintain and repair the building and the equipment. A major expense faced right now is to build a second building so that the youngest children, those under 3 years, can be separated from the older children so that both groups can engage safely in age-appropriate games and activities. The centre was built for around 60 children in 2011, but we now have 140 children coming most days.
Pygmy Child Care is making a difference in the lives of some of the world's most disadvantaged children. It's a privilege to be part of the transformation in the lives of these children. They now have a hope for the future that their parents could not even have imagined. But there's still so much more to do. We really need to find some way to allow our children as they graduate to find a way to become self-sufficient. And these children have no family to help them. They get nothing from the government. They're dependent on the kindness of strangers. That's you. Please don't look away.